Welcome back to the Norisring free practice 2 of the weekend for round 4 of the DTM 2024 season. If you joined us this morning for free practice 1, you'd have seen Kelvin van der Linde, who finished at the top of the timesheets. It was a 49.340. Yes, just 49 seconds, because this track is a small track. It is a street circuit. It is, in fact, Germany's only street circuit for car racing, and it is just 2.162 kilometers around the streets of Nuremberg, with just 5 turns, 4 to the left and 1 to the right, running in an anti-clockwise direction. The weather conditions are absolutely perfect for FP2, 23.6 degrees centigrade. The track is heating up quickly, 32.3 degrees. We are getting ready for a weekend of racing in the DTM, and after this weekend, we're going to be at the halfway point of the season. Heaven forbid, this year is flying past, and it's Kelvin van der Linde who was quickest this morning. It's Kelvin van der Linde who currently leads the championship standings. He is ahead of Marco Bortolotti by just 8 points. It really is all to play for this year. Third in the championship standings is Riccardo Feller, 16 points adrift. Marco Bortolotti struggling to find a setup, had some issues this morning in FP1, but his teammate, no such problems. Nicky Tim, who won the Spa 24-hour race this time last week, this time last week it will be. He was second this morning, a 49.356. Certainly the best that we've seen Nicky Tim going in the Lamborghini Huracan that is prepared by SSR Performance, and the 3 times DTM champion René Rast was third. Fourth this morning was Franck Pereira, and he is here subbing for Christian Engelhardt. We say get well soon. Christian Engelhardt injured himself over the winters, had to have an operation on his knee. Hope he's watching, hope he's putting his feet up and enjoying all the action from the streets of Nuremberg. So it is something very, very different this weekend. And everything is different, including qualifying and free practice, because whereas free practice is normally all about setup and all about just getting the car dialed in, it does actually have some significance when it comes to qualifying, because the combined times from both this session and the one this morning will be put together, and the cars will then be split into 2 groups depending on their free practice times. The fastest of the 2 sessions, the 3rd fastest, the 5th fastest, the 7th fastest, and so on, will be into Group 1. Positions 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. will be into Group 2. And then tomorrow morning, for our first qualifying session of the weekend, the 2 groups will run separately. Group 1 will go first, and they will qualify, and then Group 2 will qualify afterwards. The fastest time overall from both those sessions will determine who starts on pole position, and the rest of that driver's group will line up behind him in a single file, and the fastest person from the other group will line up on the outside front row with the rest of his group lined up behind him. Just to make it all fair and square, on Sunday it will be Group 2 that get to qualify first, and Group 1 who will qualify second. And one would suggest that, particularly on a street circuit where the racing has just started to get going on this Friday, that there's going to be more and more rubber laid down. The track, if it stays dry, will get faster and faster. So one would suggest that the group that goes second, i.e. the group that goes second tomorrow and the group that goes second on Sunday, will potentially be within the best shot of a pole position. I said I'd try and explain that better, having made a right haulets of it this morning. I'm not entirely sure I've done that. Alongside me for this event this weekend is Adam Weller. We would normally have Chris Hartley. We're at the Norisring. Chris Hartley is at the Lando Norisring in the UK for this weekend. See what I did there? So in his place this weekend, I said a very good afternoon to Adam Weller.
I enjoyed that immensely. That was very good. Yes, it's interesting, isn't it, with this format? Effectively, half the grid loses the opportunity to try for pole position on this Friday afternoon. That's something we don't normally see in DTM or really any form of racing. So this is a high-stakes FP2, albeit one where they don't really have that much control over it. If you set the lap of your life and then you're fourth fastest, well, tough. You're not going to be able to challenge for pole position come Saturday morning. The cars roll out then onto the circuit for this free practice. Of course, FP2 a little bit more compact.
You could challenge for pole position. I will correct you on that. But this is going to be my dodgy explanation here, because if the person in Group 2 qualifies fastest, or the person in Group 1, they will have pole position.
Of course, yes.
So the pole position still is all up to play for.
Right, yes.
But the rest of the group, I'm pleased you said that, because yeah, explaining these things are not always the strong point. I hope it's going to make sense. Basically, to summarise, free practice is more important than normal. On top of that, drivers are going to need to get dialed in, get the car set up, get tyres ready, get a quali set up, and all the while in their mind will be the fact that Kelvin van der Linde is leading the points ahead of Mirko Bortolotti, 82 to 74. Ricardo Feller, defending champion. Thomas Preining, always there or thereabouts. He's in fourth place ahead of Arjun Maini and Maro Engel. And Thomas Preining, who is aiming to continue his run of 22 consecutive points finishes. He's the only driver to have achieved, or to be able to achieve that this year. The defending champion, he's always there. And we said this during the FP1 session. It's consistency, not necessarily just race wins, that's going to win a championship this year.
No, exactly right. Only one driver so far this season has finished in the top 10 every single time, and it's Sheldon van der Linde, albeit he's only 8th in the championship points, and that's because all of his top 10s have been off of the podium. So you need a healthy mix of showcase results and strong finishes. Of course, we can fully expect the 2022 champion to end up on the podium sooner rather than later. The BMWs looked strong here earlier on. One of the manufacturers that was absent from the sharp end of the free practice one was Mercedes. In fact, this man, Maro Engel, was 6th fastest, the first of the Mercedes cars in FP1. Let's see if maybe we start to see the bottles uncorked a little bit more in the Mercedes camp during this one.
Yes, I get the feeling that we're going to be seeing times quite a bit quicker than we did this morning. We've had quite a lot of cars running out on circuit throughout this session. We've got the GT4 cars here, we've got the next-gen cars here. We've also got DTM Classic, which is like watching Adam on Christmas Day. His eyes light up as these cars come screaming around the streets of Nuremberg. So there's a bit of rubber getting laid down on the track, so the sun is shining. One would like to think that the track is going to get quicker and quicker. You can see there, it's quite a traffic jam into turn 1. This is just free practice. It's going to be fun when we've got 20 of them charging down there for the first race of the weekend. It is, of course, 2 races this weekend, one tomorrow and one on Sunday. Qualifying will be early, oh dear, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, local time. That'll be 8 o'clock if you're watching in the UK, sorry chaps. That'll be tomorrow for qualifying for race 1, and then similar times on Sunday. There is Sheldon van der Linde in the very pretty BMW. Now we're riding on board with the local hero, yes, Mega Marco Wittmann, who comes from just up the road in Fürth, which is not very far away from here at all. Yes, he gets to sleep in his own bed tonight, and he stole the headlines last time we saw him at Zandvoort. What a race that was. If you've ever seen somebody try to drag a car that has fallen apart with smoke pouring from it, bring it home and to the top 7 of the podium, that's what he did at Zandvoort. It was a truly entertaining race. He got together with Mirko Bortolotti earlier on in the race. He had a bodywork rubbing against the tyres. Luckily for him, the bodywork eventually parted company with the BMW, and he took his first win in quite some time. Ended a bit of a drag of a year and a half. And he'd done it from 14th on the grid as well, so it really was a spectacular performance from him. He's going to be hoping that he could do exactly that here in the streets of Nuremberg, his home track here around the Stein Tribune of Nuremberg. The cars looking spectacular.
Well, if he does qualify 14th again on Saturday morning, he could still win this one. A guy called Nicola Larini, you may remember him, won from 14th position here in 1993 in an Alfa Romeo. I don't know why I've absorbed that specific piece of information, but I have. Regarding Marco Wittmann, we don't do home and away kits in racing as we do in the football. However, if there's ever a home team this weekend, it is, of course, the number 11 Schubert BMW, not just because Marco is based pretty much across town, but also because of the sponsor on his car, Schaeffler, who have been his primary sponsor since the 2019 DTM season. They are based here in Nuremberg, and every employee basically gets invited to sit on the Stein Tribune and create a green wall for the green machine. Those are the words of my colleague Stefan Lerner, whose hometown is here in Nuremberg, so he's been giving me the local scoop, and I believe his sister is one of the staff members that's got free tickets. Perks the job and all that. Oh, absolutely. And that explains where the noise comes from. His fan club, I remember it from last year, and I remember all the green, so that answers that one. Not such great news for Frank Pereira, who is subbing, as previously mentioned, for Christian Engelhardt. He is under investigation for speeding in the pits, so they're going to be taking a look at that. I don't think something like that would give him a grid penalty if it was found to be the case. Possibly the parting with a few euros, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. You can see that Sheldon van der Linde is out there setting a couple of purples. At the moment, he's at the top of the timing, 49.496, and that is a little fraction, about a tenth of the fastest time set by his brother this morning. Kelvin van der Linde, 49.340, but now that is already eclipsed. So Sheldon van der Linde, the quickest time of the day so far, 49.259. Can we get it into the 48? I would wager we probably can, with the sun shining here at the Norisring. We're in an old 17th century city, named in the hope that it would avoid confusion with the Nürburgring, although many visitors still make the trip expecting to find the Nordschleife nestling between the tribunes, but they are always disappointed. I had that exact text exchange on Tuesday. Like, oh, are you going to the Nuremberg Ring? No, yes, the Nuremberg Ring. Well, there is now. We've just created it. Yes, indeed. So, right, back onto what is occurring on our screens. The BMWs were looking mighty in FP1 this morning, and they're doing exactly the same here. There are 3 BMWs in the field, and they are occupying 3 of the top 4 places, although that has now been unsettled because Thierry Vermeulen jumps up into P2 at 49.517. The Ferraris, a little bit conspicuous by their absence maybe this morning. He was 12th at 49.665 in this morning's session, so he's already eclipsed his time this morning, but now jumping up into P2. Thierry Vermeulen ahead of, behind Sheldon van der Linde. That man, the Viking, who clearly had 3 Weetabix for breakfast about this time last week, is in 3rd place. Nicky Tim, 49.691. He's eclipsed because Lucas Stoltz, suddenly the Mercedes, jumping up into P3, 49.644. Get the feeling the times are going to be tumbling all the way through this session. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, I'm wowed by the pace of the modern GT3 car all the time. René Rast just proving it, 49.238 to go top of the sheets. Those BMWs looking strong here once again. But a week ago at Spa, they broke the lap record for Spa 24-hour qualifying. They beat the GT1 days in the GT3 machineries there. And here, this morning at the Norisring in the DTM Classic session, we had Stefan Mucker in his period correct person motorsport Mercedes C-Class, and he was outgunned by the pace we're seeing out of these GT3 cars. Crazy. I've never seen a grown man look so excited. Whilst all that's been going on, René Rast jumps to the top, but again, that's eclipsed by his teammate, Sheldon van der Linde, 49.132. We are a tenth away from making it into the 48s. It is BMW first and second. Sheldon van der Linde, René Rast responds. Such a short lap, I can't keep up with it. 49.074. We are just minutes away from a 48, I reckon. But René Rast in a car that is called Solidisho.
It's named, I've got that wrong, haven't I? It's been named after his ex-teammate who sadly passed away, Sean Edwards. If you remember him back in 2013. His son Liam makes up the LI. The DI is made from his wife, and the JO's from his second son Jonah. He's got a plaque in his car, and it's pronounced Sholidisho. I wrote it out phonetically, and I still can't say it. But that is the name of his chassis. It's bringing him a lot of luck at the moment because he has been looking dialed in from the moment he rolled onto the track this morning.
One of the greats, Sean Edwards, a familiar name in the ADAC paddock many years ago as well in Porsche Carrera Cup Germany. Great to have that little tribute out there on the circuit. Maro Engel then coming to the line. 2 personal bests thus far for the 130 car as they celebrate 130 years of Mercedes in motorsport. And that time was a 49.438, so 4th fastest for the time being. Thierry Vermeulen again squeezing some more pace out of the Ferrari 296 GT3 as well, coming out of turn 4. Middle sector a bit off, but let's see what he does across the line.
Of course, it's not all about speed here. It's about setting up. It's about scrubbing in tyres. It's about getting a handle on this very unusual circuit. The aforementioned Maro Engel was certainly doing that this morning. He put in 59 laps. He was out for pretty well the whole session. Ended up in 6th place, but you get the feeling that the team in the Team Winward crew were gathering an awful lot of data there. So Maro Engel putting in the laps this morning. He's out on track at the moment in P5 with Lucas Auer having jumped ahead of him. Interestingly, well, Mirko Bortolotti had been quite quiet. He's now on track down in 18th at the moment. I'm just looking to see, I've got 19 runners on the screen, and it is Ben Durr who we have yet to see out on track. Ben Durr, who's making his debut at the Norisring this weekend. So he's not out on track at the moment. And for McLaren, this is a steep learning curve, at least for Durr Motorsport. It's a steep learning curve, having to learn to do performance pit stops this year. Also, the McLaren new to DTM this year. Great to have them here on board, but a steep learning curve. Clemens Schmid, his teammate in P17, and there is Arjun Maini in the number 36 car, currently in 8th place at 49.553. We're still waiting for somebody to get into the 48s. I predict it's going to happen soon.
Could well, absolutely. Yeah, I'm expecting it before perhaps the end of this session. Certainly the cool attempts in full quali spec on Saturday. I'd expect us to be into that 48-second bracket. Arjun Maini just slowing down, getting well out of the way. And of course, that's one of the things that differentiates this place from most street circuits, is you do actually have some room to get out of the way if you're not on a flying lap. As you said earlier on, I haven't got a chance to walk this one yet, but you walked the circuit yesterday, Brian, and you're not lacking for car width.
No, you can get about, I reckon, about 8 abreast down the straight. But the problem is you only get 1 abreast round the corners. It is effectively 2 hairpins that are joined by a couple of whopping big straights with a chicane chucked down the middle of one of them. We've got the Grundig turn, which is a turn 1, and it is a tight turn. And then they head into the Scholar S, which is the chicane turns 2 and 3. And then it's flat out up towards another hairpin, turn 4. Turn 5, well, a lot of people say this is a 4-turn track because turn 5 is taken flat out. As you can see, we've just been round it with Kelvin van der Linde. I didn't hear him lift. So he takes that flat out, as indeed does everybody else. It's a long stretch here, and then the heavy braking into turn 1. You're braking from about 240 kilometers an hour in 6th gear, and then turn 1, which is taken in 1st gear at 50 kilometers an hour. So a lot of pressure on the brakes. The other issue about this circuit is the change in track surface. You've got concrete, you've got pavement. I was talking to Jan Marszałkowski earlier, who's one of the GT4 drivers, and he was telling me there is a section where you can get up onto the pavement where there's not a step, and you can get the car up against the wall. But if you go out wide further down that part of the stretch, then you're going to hit like the edge of a pavement. So it is a very precise business. The driver's going out wide towards the wall. That is Kelvin van der Linde peeling off into the pit lane. So at the moment, he's in third, 49.262. So he's already improved on his time this morning. They're all gunning for the BMW of Rene Rast at the moment. We look at Nicky Tim, the name that has been making the headlines in the last week as a result of that epic win at Spa-Francorchamps. He too peels off into the pits.
Good to see that Mirko Bortolotti's issues from free practice one, they were reporting lack of drive out of corners, lack of straight line speed in general. He's just gone to a 49.187, third fastest in the session. Ergo, clearly that engine is running at full chat.
Yes, we heard him on the radio saying he thought there were some issues. I haven't actually spoken to the team. We need to get down there and find out what was occurring there. Not that they're probably going to tell us, but as you say, they seem to have that dialed in now. So yeah, third at 49.187, so that's a very good time. Jack Aitken had a quiet time this morning. He does tend to take it quite easy in FP1 and FP2. We don't often see him towards the top. Very much about just dialing the car in and getting ready for quali. But a P8, pretty good here in the Ferrari 296. Again, with Mirko Bortolotti on board. If the graphic is in green, it means it's a personal best. If it's grey, it means it's not the best of anything. If it's purple, it means it's the best of anybody out on the circuit. The circuit divided into 3 sections. We're used to the sectors being maybe 30, 40 seconds long. Well, these sectors are about 15, 18 seconds long. Such is the smallness, there's a word, of this circuit. I said it this morning, I say it again, this is about as close to oval racing as you can get with DTM.
Absolutely right, and you know what? Jack Aitken fascinates me because he is split across so many ways from a manufacturer perspective. A test driver in Formula E with Envision Racing, they get their power from Jaguar. He's running a Cadillac in the World Endurance Champion, or in Le Mans and in the IMSA Championship, and he's racing a Ferrari in DTM. Split loyalties for Jack, but yes, I imagine FP1 is often, as much as anything, about reacclimatizing to whatever type of car he happens to be racing this week.
I think versatile is probably the word that you're looking for there for Jack Aitken. The thing we haven't mentioned during this broadcast, we said it plenty in FP1, is we are here in party mode this weekend. We are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the DTM. What a remarkable 40 years it's been, and what a place to celebrate it. We've got so many superstars from across the years that are here gathering, lots of partying going on. 40 years of DTM, celebrating it here at the Norisring as we see Mirko Bortolotti with a purple in Sector 3. He remains in P3 at the moment. And Arjun Maini, a personal best in Sector 2. That's the view from the front of that Mercedes.
I can say with great confidence that the DTM paddock is one of very few places in the world where you can have the honour of almost being run over by Olaf Manthey on an e-scooter. That's something I've experienced over lunch. But yes, it's really a great celebration this weekend. There's lots of historic machinery there, not just for the classic race, but also on display as well. And every corner you turn, you seem to bump into a familiar face from yesteryear. Bortolotti on another fast lap at the moment goes second fastest, a 49.101. BMW, Lamborghini, BMW, Audi, Ferrari in the top 5.
Well, there's the BOP doing its job then, isn't it? So lots of variety there. We always knew that Porsche was going to be quick here. Just really the short wheelbase, the rear engine, just working very well around a circuit such as this. I mean, not that I know technically, but I've been told that. Look how close to the wall Mirko Bortolotti gets. The wall of champions is now the wall of wing mirrors. We've seen many part company with the cars over the years. But the drivers, this is the session where they want to extract as much as they can, see how wide they can get. How much grip is there out close to those walls? This is where they find out during these FP sessions.
Yes, any wallflowers that are on that wall will soon be scraped off before the end of the weekend. Bortolotti not improving that time. Did have a fast first sector, though. That Lamborghini looks strong here this weekend. They're yet to claim a win here at the Norisring during the GT3 era of DTM. Actually, also having not won here during the GT3 era, quite surprisingly, is Audi. Yes, they've won here before, but it was 2019 with the Class 1 car. So they have gone with a bit of a drought, at least at the Norisring in recent years. And Lamborghini yet to win here, point blank, coming out of the final corner and again hustling along. This feels like quali simulation lap after quali simulation lap.
It's great, isn't it? And the drivers, of course, as a street circuit, can't come here and test. The last time they would have driven this circuit, well, for most of them, would have been this time last year. So you can't come here, obviously, and get a setup during the year. Of course, testing now very much limited, but these free practice sessions really extremely valuable to the teams and to the drivers to find their way around. The Motorsport Club of Nuremberg, who are involved in this with the ADAC, they have arranged it with the public roads between the Zeppenfeld and the Dutzendijk, which is the name of turn 4. 600 volunteers who put in around 10,000 hours over 2 weeks to set this up. Phenomenal job they do. Lots of crash barriers and concrete blocks and all the rest of it have to be put in place. They do a phenomenal job and it attracts a big crowd. We're expecting well over 100,000 people during this weekend to come and sit on the steps and enjoy DTM in the sunshine here in the streets of Nuremberg.
While I was watching the DTM Classic cars go around earlier on, I got myself talking to one of the local racing fans, and I think he was somewhere in his early 30s. He was with his 2 children. And I said, well, when did you first come here? And he said, I was 5. And I said, how many have you missed since you were 5? Not many. And now his 2 kids, who are both under 5, are getting the exact same treatment. It's really a generational tradition here in Nuremberg to come down to the Norisring and watch the Norisring Trophy, the Norisring 200 races here every year.
Yes, I mean, DTM aside, this is in fact the 81st International ADAC Norisring Speed Weekend, so 81 years they've been doing it. And as I said already, it's Germany's only street circuit for cars. It's known as the Franconian Monaco. You can see why. Up close against the walls they get. The qualifying session tomorrow morning and on Sunday morning is going to be important because despite the width of those straights, it is a tough old place to overtake. It's going to be one thing getting up the grid, another thing staying in that position, and of course keeping it out of the walls. Those walls are very close. No room for error really on this circuit. Maybe a little bit of runoff into turns 1 and 4, but apart from that, some very immovable objects keeping the cars pointing in the right direction in theory.
Yeah, it's one of those things where everyone's going to be watching the car ahead of them, going, come on, just slip a little bit out the corner, a little bit of extra slip so you get a poor run off the turn. I can then banzai to the inside into the next braking zone. You've got to watch out for those little mistakes, take advantage of them where you can. I'd be very interested to know quite how much fiddling is done with the brake bias around here as well. You'll notice that going into turn 1, they're still firmly in the process of deceleration as they turn into the first corner. So that would imply they need quite a lot of brake bias to the rear so that the car will actually turn under braking. If the brake bias is too far to the front, it'll just go straight on if you try and turn under braking. You see it there, Preining slowing down, but also approaching the apex at the same time in the Porsche, the Manthey racing car. I love the fact that we've got 2 Grellos on the circuit. That's great.
Oh, yes, the legendary Grello. And we must once again offer our congratulations to Manthey EMA on their win in the Le Mans 24-hour race a couple of weeks ago. That was an emotional occasion, wasn't it? But Manthey, Olaf Manthey's team, do a phenomenal job. Great to have them, as always, in the DTM. And great to see Thomas Preining actually rattling the catch fencing as he exits the corner. Now, along that stretch, that long stretch, I tried to pronounce it earlier. I'm not sure I should try and do it again. The Buthener Straight. There we go. Into the Grundig turn, the hairpin. That heavy braking. Once again, first gear, 50 kilometers an hour, just briefly, then back on the power, and it's up to about 190 kilometers an hour in 4th gear as they head up towards turn 2. Clemens Schmid in the McLaren, the Durr Motorsport McLaren. Now, where's the other one? We still haven't seen Ben Durr yet, so he's still in the pit. So clearly, there's an issue going on with the other McLaren. If there's a driver who could probably do with the time behind the wheel, it's probably Ben Durr, because he is, as far as I'm aware, the only driver in the field who has never raced here before. So he will need all the practice he can get but clearly an issue with the number 25 car keeping him off the track at the moment.
Marco Wittmann finally sets a representative time, goes fourth fastest in his Schaeffler-backed BMW M4 GT3. That makes it 3 BMWs in the top 4. We're in a similar position in free practice 1 at about a halfway point in the session as well. But then slowly but surely, it started to become a bit less BMW-centric at the sharp end of the order as Riccardo Feller comes on the radio.
Okay, so we have 20 minutes left. As soon as you have a read, let me know, and then we do the next change, and I think then we are roughly done. Maybe for some bits of practice at the end.
Cool. Well, we'd like to see that. Another car under investigation for pit speeding, this time Luca Engsler in the number 19 car. So some of the drivers are a little bit eager to get out on track at the moment. So I'm just looking to see where Luca Engsler is, 18th at the moment. So he hasn't really put in a benchmark time of 50.032. Well, this morning he got put in a 49.589. So he's a little bit off that. So the team clearly working on something other than just a very fast lap time, but investigation for pit speeding, never a good thing. And as I said earlier, hopefully that won't have any direct effect on starting positions. It may just be a fine or something similar to that is awarded to the drivers. We're riding there with Riccardo Feller. You can see him in the number 7 car, down in 14th. So by his standards, a little bit further back than what we'd expect. But again, you know, lap times, yes, the times do affect where they're going to qualify or when they're going to qualify tomorrow morning, but still the important bit is getting the setup right for qualifying and having a setup for the race. The surface, the tarmac, the concrete, the conditions, very different to anywhere else we race in DTM, so a lot to be learnt during these 2 short free practice sessions.
Absolutely the case. Preining has only just gone 13th fastest on his previous lap. Again, a little bit off the pace, but he's personal best in Sector 1, a little bit off in Sector 2. Let's see if he can maybe get into the top 10. Porsche's conspicuously absent from the top 10 of FP2 at this stage, and unfortunately, Thomas Preining can't do anything about that right now.
He is the defending champion, chose to go with 91 rather than the number 1. He said, I was the champion last year. It's a clean sheet of paper in 2024. Therefore, I will continue with my number 91. He is Mr. Consistency, looking to continue that run of points scoring finishes to make it 23 and indeed 24 this weekend. The points championship is incredibly close. There are 56 points available to each driver over the weekend. Of course, in qualifying, there are 3 points awarded for pole position, 2 for second, 1 for third, on top of your 25 points per race for a win. So when you look at the point standings and you see there are 25 points separating first to 9th, you realise this championship is very, very much alive and kicking. It could go in any direction at all. We also have the pit stop award, the fastest pit stop award. Currently, Mercedes-AMG Team Winward are leading the way with 13 points ahead of Manthey EMA, who have 10, and Schubert Motorsport, who have 9 points in that. And in the team championship, it's AB Sportsline, who leads Schubert Motorsport by 9 points, with Mercedes-AMG Team HRT in third with a 33-point gap. So Schubert Motorsport, with 3 of their cars in the top 4, must be fancying their chances to close in on the team championships as well. Of course, this is just Friday. It could all change tomorrow. We haven't even talked about the possibility of rain. Whatever forecast you look at, as Marco Wittmann just trying to work his way around the AB Sportsline Audis. Every forecast I look at seems to be different. If you talk to one person, they say it's going to chuck it down tomorrow. You talk to somebody else and they go, it's going to be a heat wave. I think the conclusion is tune in and find out. But yes, the weather could play a factor in this as well. We're looking at the local hero, Marco Wittmann, with 4 wings on the car, restored back to how it was prior to the Zandvoort race last time out. Out on the circuit at the moment in P4, 49.212. Despite all our hyping and excitement earlier on, we still haven't got a 48 yet. Maybe we might have to wait till tomorrow morning for that.
Maybe so. but we could get surprised towards the end of the session. I suspect we haven't seen the best out of a couple of the drivers out there. Obviously, Frank Pereira was towards the sharp end in FP1 as well. He's only 16th fastest. But yes, we may have to just hold our breath on that one for another few hours. One more sleep till 48. We'll wait and see. 50 minutes and 45 seconds left of the session then, so approaching the final third of the session. Arjun Maini goes to 7th fastest as well, so he gets himself up there into the top 10. Still, though, no Mercedes getting towards that top 5 right now.
Yeah, the Mercedes are not looking to have quite the legs of maybe those around them. It's not unheard of for the BOP to change during a weekend, and you think maybe Schubert Motorsport might have that in the back of their mind. The BMW looking very strong, as indeed are the Lamborghini Huracans. But Mercedes, well, they would be quite happy if there was a change. We had some significant changes after Zandvoort. We saw Audi able to unload 25 kilos, but BMW had to load on an extra 20 kilos. They also had a change in their boost pressure. They went from 2.73 bar down to 2.67 maximum boost. Ferrari were allowed to unload 15 kilos. Lamborghini were allowed to unload 20. McLaren were allowed to unload 5, but Mercedes had an extra 15 put on. They had a change in the engine restrictor as well. Went from 34.5 to 36 millimeters. Porsche stayed the same. But, you know, I wonder whether we might see any changes overnight if things stay as they are, because it's not unheard of.
I just want to say hello to a special listener of ours, Arjun Maini, who clearly heard me say there were no Mercedes in the top 5 and immediately went 4th fastest, 49.166. So there goes that consideration. Stoltz also on a quick lap, and he's currently 6th in the standings. So maybe the Mercedes are just waiting. Maybe they're waiting to surprise you with a late 48. Who knows?
It's nice to know they can get our commentary on the car radio, isn't it? And we're looking at Arjun Maini there, a driver who has found a renewed vigour this year. We saw him on the podium at Zandvoort. He's his first podium of the year as he just backs out of it to find a bit of space, it looks like. You can see him just looking in the mirrors, finding a bit of space, and then maybe just finding a gap to put in a bit of a hot lap. I don't think he's got a problem because he's not looking too panicked, or has he got a problem? He is going to know. He's just looking for a bit of space. So a fellow Mercedes, I think it was Lucas Stoltz that came sailing past on the outside. I'm going to follow him around. So just winding up along the back straight, the Zeppelinstrasse, which has a little bit of a kink in it that is taken at full speed. They get up to about 218 kilometers an hour at the end of that in 5th gear. And then that heavy braking all the way down to 1st gear on turn 4. Out of turn 4, the Dutzendijk curve, and just the other side of that wall is the gorgeous Dutzendijk Lake with the Congress building in the background. It is a glorious sight. Then they come out of turn 4. There is a turn 5, but a lot of people just ignore that and call it part of the straight because they take it flat out past the pits, and then it's back in to turn 1 again. Such a short lap. Takes me a whole weekend to get used to giving a lap time that doesn't have a 1 at the beginning of it. So Arjun Maini still building up the speed at the moment. You get the feeling he's just looking to do something a bit rapid in the last 10 minutes of this session.
Of course, the great thing about the Norisring, maybe for some of the PRs here at the circuit, is that there are 2 different record books to choose from if you want to try and make some points about your brand's illustrious history here. Obviously, Porsche hasn't been a proponent of DTM for anything as long as like Audi or Mercedes, given they arrived into the series in 2021 with the arrival of the GT3 rule set into the championship. But of course, Porsche were a long-time proponent of the Norisring 200 races, the Norisring Trophy races here in the 1970s. In fact, they went from 1975 to 1987, taking a win each time. That was with Porsche 935s in the DRM series. Then the Group C era, of course, the 956s as well. So if the Porsche press officer doesn't want to harp on the DTM side of things, can certainly harp on the history of the Norisring 200, the Norisring Trophy weekend, which, as you said earlier on, Brian, such a long and storied history behind it. And you know what was funny? 1975 to 1987, Porsche win every year. What beats them in 1988? why a Sauber Mercedes C9 broke the streak. So Mercedes got their win in 1988, ending the Porsche dominance.
Adam Wikipedia Weller, ladies and gentlemen. He eats encyclopedias for breakfast, dinner and tea. And he has more information. If we get a red flag at any period, this is where he comes alive. Luca Engstler in 18th place. I'm really sad to see we've still not seen Ben Durr yet. So clearly an issue going on with the Ben Durr car. But Luca Engstler, 49.776. Still very much, well, I was going to say getting to grips with the Liquimoli by GRT Lamborghini. But of course, we saw him take a win at Oschersleben. He, coming into the season, his target was to, I think it was to win a race. Well, he did that in the first event of the year, so he's had to reassess what his targets are for this year. But certainly getting used to the streets of Nuremberg, it's a place to learn on a steep learning curve. A great guy, Luca Engstler, a really hard-working man. You'll see him not only driving the car, but he's also involved in the GT Masters team that Engstler involved in. You see him sweeping the floor, doing all the rest of it. Not scared of a hard day's work as Luca Engstler. In 18th place at the moment, so maybe just gathering information, dialing it all in, getting ready for when quali happens tomorrow. Arjun Maini currently in 4th place. Mara Engel has just popped up in 5th place. He's done 33 laps, so very much on the same mentality as the previous session. He's just getting the car out there and staying out for the whole session.
And to that point, actually, in regard to Ben Durr, he did 34 laps in FP1. All but 2 other cars did over 40 laps. So I do wonder if late in FP1 there was an issue for Durr that has yet to be rectified on that second Durr Motorsport McLaren. Hopefully all is well and we'll see him back out there, if not for the end of this session, at least for quali on Saturday, of course. Arjun Maini's team practicing some tyre stops now. Of course, we've seen that before up close and personal. You do get to see that towards the evening. Teams rehearsing those pit stops. Well-oiled machines, aren't they?
I love it because quite often as the sun's going down at a race circuit, you'll walk down the pit lane and they're there rehearsing. This is a team sport and they're not just rocking up on a Saturday and a Sunday and just chucking a couple of wheels on. Let's just have a listen to Arjun Maini's team radio and then we'll come back on that one.
Okay, Arjun, good job, good job. We box and we are done for the session.
Wow. Well, I'd say that's the kind of message you want to hear in your headset, isn't it? Yes, so the teams, they work incredibly hard. There's fitness training for the team members because we have seen it so many times. Races are won and lost in the pits. We've seen it this year, we saw it last year, we've seen it every year. The team that change the wheels and the tyres, the team that prepare the car are as much as part of it as the driver. The driver is merely the nut that holds onto the steering wheel. As we look at Nicky Tim, currently in 11th place, 49.288, but you get the feeling he's on a hot lap too.
To your point about the pit stops, of course, in the United States, there are 3 primary routes for collegiate athletes coming out of their NCAA days. You've got the NFL, the NBA, or the NASCAR pit crews. Pretty much everybody who holds a tyre in a NASCAR Cup Series race was a quarterback the year previously at a college. So yeah, athleticism is actually a huge part of the pit stops in competitive pit stop situations where you have to beat the clock. Beating the clock on the timing screens though, Maro Engel, 49.060.
Wow, so the laps that he's been putting out there, he has done more laps than anybody else, 36. Let's have a listen to Mirko Bortolotti, who's on the blower.
Okay, Mirko, positioning was 20 centimeters to the front. Please do a penalty lap. Practice a penalty lap this lap.
So the penalty lap, you don't want, you practice them for the worst case scenarios. You're certainly hoping you're not going to need to put that into practice. The penalty lap is a box that is painted on track off the racing line on the exit of turn 1 in this instance, and the driver, if they pick up a penalty lap, will have to pass through it at no more than 50 kilometers an hour. On a normal circuit, it's the equivalent to adding about 5 seconds on to the lap time. It's certainly a lot less harsh than a drive-through penalty, but we've seen it, well, we saw it last time out because Jack Aitken got 3 penalty laps. The reason he got 3 penalty laps is he stopped in the wrong pit box. He stopped in the HRT box. So they put a statement out. They said, "Thank you, Emil Fry Racing, for your interest in the HRT pit crew. We'll be happy to serve you next time. However, you should make an appointment to avoid annoying waiting times." I thought it was good that they treated that with good humour, because it did actually block Lucas Stoltz briefly. But Jack, for all his trouble, got 3 visits to the penalty box, which moved him out of the points quite significantly. And that is a great example of the depressing sight from a driver's perspective of having to pass through the penalty box. I figure you practice it, because if you are going to have to do it, you want to make sure you're going to do it absolutely spot on.
Of course, Jack Aitken couldn't use the excuse, well, I forgot what weekend it is, because he doesn't drive a Mercedes anywhere. He did drive a Mercedes-powered Williams at one point, though, to his credit. Mirko Bortolotti there, as you said, great example of what the slow lane looks like there, the penalty lap. But, of course, the thing here with that turn 1 exit penalty lap as well is somebody could try and arc wide to get a good run into it and then collide with somebody out of turn 1. We've seen that kind of thing before.
Yeah, and the penalty box, they position it in such a way that actually you have to reduce speed into the corner that leads into it. You look at it maybe out of the hairpin at Hockenheim, but they have to come in and they have to take a different line to everybody else, so it's going to really hurt. You can't just come round and then dive in, because if you take somebody with you, you're probably, well, A, you might end up in the wall, and B, you're probably going to end up with an even bigger penalty. Yeah, the penalty box, a great innovation. We've had it now for 2 or 3 years in ADAC run events, and if they never have another good idea, it doesn't matter, because that was an epic one. I think it's when it first arrived, when the penalty box first arrived, I thought, oh, this sounds like a bit of a fad, and then I saw what it did, and it was brilliant. A great way of giving a penalty without utterly wrecking somebody's race. Now, it says Maro Engel outlap. I didn't actually realise it'd actually been in, because he does appear to just stay out on track all the time in the 130 car. You've already mentioned it. He got special concession from the ADAC to have the number 130. Normally it's only 2 digits that are allowed. It celebrates Mercedes' first ever automobile race from Paris to Rouen 130 years ago, back in 1894, about the time that Adam was born. The middle of the car is representing the 50s Silver Arrow with the paint scraped off. The rear reflects modern carbon, and the front, the modern era white with red performance stripe. The red starting number is like it used to be back in the day. So a wonderful celebration of 130 years of Mercedes motorsport. The car is spectacular. Maro Engel, well, he's done more laps than pretty well everybody else added together, so he's probably into the pits for a cup of tea, I should think.
Nicky Thiem could be on for a personal best here. He was about 100th under his best coming through the second sector. Let's see, he does. Personal best, 3rd position, 49.095. Nicky Thiem, it just seems like he's on a bit of better form than we've seen from him this year coming into this weekend, betting himself into the SSR Performance lineup, betting himself in to that Lamborghini, and as you have alluded to, of course, basking in recent successes, maybe all combining, along with a winning family lineage here, of course. His father's won here twice previously in DTM. It just seems like the Dane is teeing himself up nicely in this Friday.
I'm just looking at our timing screen. We have got several two teams, Abt Sportsline and Schubert, who are under investigation for infringement of Article 23.4. I've got the rule book on my laptop. I know that if I look away from the screen and scroll to it, it'll probably be ready for a quali tomorrow morning by the time I find it. I don't know if you've got it to hand or not, but 23.4, I don't know what that is, but 2 of the teams under investigation by the race directors and the race stewards. We'll keep you updated if we hear anything about that. Jack Aitken clearly likes the middle sector of this course, 14.981 in Sector 2. He's down in 12th at the moment. I just get the feeling that Jack is just holding his cards fairly close to his chest. The only driver to have won 2 races this year. Would dearly love to be somewhere up near the front. That Ferrari, very rapid, still kind of getting to grips with the 296. It's not that older model, was introduced maybe 2 years ago. The BOP apparently is very difficult to classify because of the excellent mechanical grip in that car, and it can often compensate for lack of performance. That's what Emma Fry Racing are saying. But he and Thierry Vermeulen certainly knowing how to hustle that 296 around the Norisring and around every circuit they visit. But you get a feeling that Jack Aitken just showing little glimpses at the moment of brilliance in the car, but maybe not showing too much. Another team under investigation. Again, Article 23.4. I'm going to have to look this up, you know. We've only got a minute left of this session, but it's Durham Motorsport who are also under investigation. I'm feeling it might be a pit stop related issue. Article 23.4, and I think with 45 seconds remaining of this session, we'll have to look into that and come back to you.
14 car coming out of the final turn, the Ferrari 296 GT3, driven by Jack Aitken. Of course, the 296 in its 2nd season, the first Orica-developed Ferrari GT3 machine, and it's been a popular platform thus far. Aitken only 12th fastest at this stage. Marco Wittmann for Schubert Motorsport turning through the first corner, and Aitken getting quite loose there out of turn 1, a little bit close to comfort to that concrete barrier. Clock is about to hit 0 on the session. Is there going to be any last-minute improvements? Clement Schmid has just set his personal best, but he remains 19th. He does get under the 50-second barrier, though. I think that's the first time he's done that so far this weekend. Aitken there, you just saw under-rotating into the corner, under-braking, missed the apex as a result of it. Again, fine balances with things like brake balance adjustments have a huge effect on your ability to turn into those hairpins.
So, having said that we thought Mercedes-AMG were struggling, it's Mauro Engel at the top of the timing screens. Frank Pereira on Team Radio.
Why the fuck are in the middle like this? This is very stupid from there. They cannot do it.
So Frank Pereira clearly with an issue with some of the driving from somebody else. Didn't quite work out what his issue was there. Frank Pereira in 18th place, so not as rapid as this morning, but a 49.573. But with the checkered flag out, it's Mauro Engel just not quite making it to the 48, so 49.060. Rene Rast has been there or thereabouts all day, second with a 49.074. So those times will be combined, but it'll be Mauro Engel who will be the car that is going to be in Group 1 because he's the quickest over the 2 sessions. There's Rene Rast in a second. Nicky Tim always been there, hasn't he, both sessions. Mirko Bortolotti having got on top of those problems ahead of Sheldon van der Linde, another of the BMWs. Lucas Auer, he's always lurking in the background. Arjun Maini, Lucas Stoltz, Marco Wittmann in 9th place, and the car that was fastest in FB1, Kelvin van der Linde in 10th in this session. Then it's the 2 Emil Fry Racing Ferraris of Thierry Vermeulen and Jack Aitken ahead of defending champion Thomas Preining, Max Powell, Luca Engstler in 15th, Ricardo Feller a long way back for him ahead of Einstein Nguyen, Frank Pereira, Clement Schmid. We did not see Ben Durr, so clearly issues with that car. FP2 here at the Norisring. All practice is done. All that's left now this weekend is going to be 4 qualifying sessions and 2 races. You can see just confirmation of the point standings coming into this weekend. It's Kelvin van der Linde with a mere 8 points over Mirko Bortolotti. It's proper close. Ricardo Feller making an ab sports line 1-3. Defending champion Thomas Preining 19 points adrift as well. So all very much to play for. But Nicky Tim has found some serious form here. He's liking these street circuits, isn't he? In P3 to go with a very strong showing of P2 this morning. morning. Rene Rast in P2 to go with his P3 from this morning. But it is Mauro Engel in car number 130, who is the fastest time. He was 6th in FP1 this morning. He is the quickest of anybody here in FP2. It's gonna be DTM round 4, races 7 and 8 of the season at the Norisring. Join us tomorrow morning at about 9 a.m. local time. We'll be on there 5 minutes before that for qualifying, 2 qualifying Groups A and Groups B. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.